What's going on, guys? It's Mike for SimRacing604, and today I'm going to be doing a video. It's been requested by a lot of you multiple times, so I'm finally getting around to do it. I apologize for the delay, but a lot of you have been asking in the comments, and I also polled you guys, and you guys wanted to know why I'm using this CSL DD wheelbase with just 8 Newton meters of torque instead of this, my SimXperience AccuForce that I used for 3 years, 13 Newton meters of torque. It's a higher spec wheelbase. So why have I decided to stick with this CSL DD? So today I'm going to talk about exactly that. Okay, so before I begin, I just want to make one thing clear here. This is not a paid promo in any way, shape, or form. Yes, this wheelbase was sent to me for review, but this video is entirely my choosing. There was no minimum number of videos that I had to make for Fanatec or anything. And I also want to make it clear that this is not anti-AccuForce. I used my AccuForce for 3 years. It worked perfectly the whole time. When it shipped, it had one button cap missing, so I reached out to them. Customer service was fantastic. They sent me a new button cap like 2 days later, and it worked flawlessly for 3 years. So I love this SimXperience AccuForce. So this is not a pro Fanatec anti-SimXperience video whatsoever. If you own this, you're good. If you're thinking about buying this, it's a great wheel, recommend it. I just personally am choosing the CSL DD these days, and I'm going to use this time to explain why. So the first one is the noise. So the CSL DD uses a passive cooling system. And now, as you can imagine, being a content creator, I'm very cognizant of background noise, or try my best to minimize background noise where I can. And having the passive cooling system is great. You wouldn't actually know that this wheelbase is turned on, frankly, judging by noise. It's perfectly quiet. Whereas the SimXperience AccuForce, this wheelbase, what sits in front of you, not that loud, but there's this cable that comes out of the back of your wheelbase, and it goes to this button box. So this is, or not button box, sorry, this control box. This control box, the cable that comes out of the back of the wheelbase plugs in right here, and it's got this cooling fan. This is also, by the way, what supplies power, and it's got this cooling fan up front that is ridiculously loud. So if you've been with the channel for any length of time, you probably remember the pegboard years. I actually had to have that control box around the corner, like outside of the room, basically, to keep the sound from bleeding too much into my microphone. So it's a very loud wheelbase over the overall system. So that's one thing that factors in definitely, is having the quieter wheelbase. And the next one is the lack of a cable on the CSL DD. So this is the quick release system. As you can see, it's cable free. This quick release just screws on to the shaft that comes out of the CSL DD. Whereas the SimXperience AccuForce, by the way, I'm being super careful here because I'm so afraid that this table in my new studio is going to rip right off the wall. I don't have it screwed in very well. But you can probably see here, there's a cable that dips down below that connects the wheel to the wheelbase in the AccuForce world. And not that big a deal. Usually you just wrap it around, then when it does its fire up sequence or calibration sequence rather, every time you turn it on, it just wraps a little bit tighter, then loosens, not a big deal. The problem is if it gets wrapped wrong, it can turn into a mess. And more than once, I accidentally turned it on when the cable was wrapped incorrectly, and it spun, it did its calibration, and tore the cable. So the cable you're actually seeing that's about, I don't know, it's curled, but I'm going to say it's about 1 foot long. It actually ships with a 2-foot cord. I had to cut my cord in half, put new RJ 12 ends on it, and get it to work that way. So having the cable is super annoying, or it was for me anyway. I don't think it's a problem for most people, but I just didn't like it. And the CSL DD has no cable, so you can switch wheels and not have to worry about cables whatsoever, and it never gets twisted, and no issues there. And the next one is that on the back of the CSL DD, you have all these ports right here, and what those are for is other devices. So you can plug in like a handbrake, you can plug in a shifter, or in my case, pedals. So I plug in my V3 inverted pedals. It has to be a Fanatec pedal set, of course, but I can plug them in and save one USB slot or one USB port. And that's a big deal because, again, going back to me being a content creator, I have cameras, I have, sound mixers, I have all different things that I'm, constantly using and trying out different things. And so conserving USB ports is a big deal. So saving that one by having my pedals plug into the wheelbase is kind of a big deal for me, so it's nice to save that. The SimXperience AccuForce doesn't have such a system. This is PC only as well, so it assumes you have enough USB ports to plug your pedals into a separate port. So this takes one or two if you want to use the USB port on the back of your wheel, but generally speaking, it takes one USB port, and then you have to have a second one for your pedals. This one, you can put your pedals directly into the wheelbase and save one USB port. The next one is a big one, frankly, and that is that this is PlayStation compatible. Well, not this one. This one is actually Xbox compatible, but I do have the Gran Turismo DD Pro, which is the same wheelbase, effectively looks slightly different, but it's still the CSL DD guts, but it's PlayStation compatible. And that's a big deal to me because I'm playing a lot of Gran Turismo 7 right now. So I can just hit the button on the front of this wheelbase, move the USB cable over from my PC to my PlayStation, and I'm good to go. So that's a big deal. Again, the SimXperience AccuForce PC only. You can go through a box, you can go through a third-party box to make it work, but this one, right from the factory, works with PlayStation, so that's kind of a big deal. And again, the CSL DD itself, this is Xbox compatible, but my GT DD Pro, which is attached to my rig right now, that is PlayStation compatible, so they offer both PlayStation and Xbox compatibility, so again, big deal for me. The next one is this wheel. This McLaren 650S GT3 wheel. I love it. It's $200 from Fanatec. I was sent it for review, and if I wasn't, I would absolutely buy it in a heartbeat at that price. I think it's a great deal. I think it's a great wheel for that price. It's got a lot of features. You can watch my review video on that if you're interested. But the bottom line is, I race for immersion. A lot of people race to get faster, to maybe win esports series, etc. I race for immersion. I'm a McLaren fan, and to have something in front of me, to be gripping a wheel that has McLaren badging on it, is a big immersion factor for me. And I love the wheel. I've got a number of other Fanatec compatible wheels at this point, but I keep going back to this McLaren GT3 wheel, and it's really one of my favorite things in sim racing. I love looking down and seeing that McLaren logo, and I think it's just a great wheel overall. There are adapter kits you can get, pardon me, to make them work with the AccuForce. But again, right from the factory, it's nice that the Fanatec wheel just has that McLaren logo and plugs right into your CSL DD base. So this love of the McLaren wheel is definitely one of the factors that keeps me coming back to the CSL DD. And the next one, I kind of alluded to it earlier, is that when you turn on the AccuForce, it does a bunch of rotations, and that's what pinched my cable. Pardon me, guys. But it does I think it's to the right first, but it does like a couple of rotations to the right, a couple of rotations left, then it centers itself. Not a big deal, but this CSL DD just kind of goes, and then it's centered. So that's, again, not a huge deal, but it's nice to have that little mini calibration, not have to worry about this violently spinning wheel in front of you. Yeah, so again, probably a minor thing for most people, but I do like the more subtle startup of the CSL DD. All right, so let's switch gears here. Let's talk about why I love this wheel so much versus the CSL DD. Number one, it's got more power. It's got that 13 Newton meters of power. Nice to have it on hand. I'm not somebody that really chases those high peak values of Newton meters too much, but having 13 Newton meters of peak power over 8 Newton meters of peak power with this CSL DD and boost kit, I mean, it's going to matter to a lot of people, right? So you get those, faster rotational forces with the higher peak power. Again, I do use the boost kit here. I did find that the 5 Newton meters was a little bit too light for me. It just kind of felt far too close to like a belt drive wheel level of power, but the boost kit brought it up to 8 Newton meters to bring that a lot closer. But again, having that peak power, having that ability to create those faster rotational forces, it can be a big factor for a lot of people. So that's definitely a plus for the SimXperience AccuForce, is having those 5 extra Newton meters of torque, which amounts to 50% more than this CSL DD with the boost kit. And the second one is the software. The Sim Commander software that comes with the AccuForce is phenomenal. It's a great piece of software. Not only can you share and download others' profiles, but it also goes on to control your motion if you ever decide to get into that. And you can tweak just about any parameter of the force feedback on your AccuForce that you could ever imagine. The level of control you have over your force feedback is incredible. And the best, still to this day, the best force feedback I've ever felt was in a race room using a custom profile on my SimXperience AccuForce. And it was just me tweaking for hours, and I finally got it right, and it just felt so great. So again, some combination of that, or perhaps some combination of that 13 Newton meters of torque available and that level of customization in the software. So huge bonus is having that Sim Commander software, because frankly I think it's better than the Fanatec software by quite a bit. The next one is the looks, and again, I'm going to be ginger here, moving this so I don't collapse my table. But that to me is a good looking wheelbase. It's dusty because it's in my garage, but out of the box it looks really great. It's nice and slim. Again, this is part of the reason they can do this is because they push the electronics over to that control box. This to me is one of the few sort of oversights or compromises with the CSL DD is the lack of sort of aesthetics. It's not good looking. It's just a box, and I'm not singling Fanatec out for that. I know like we're seeing the Moza Racing wheelbase that has a similar design. I believe the SimMagic has a similar design. Companies are just going for this sort of box design, and I don't like it. I mean, this is a revolutionary product in sim racing. You know, it's supposedly bringing direct drive to the masses, but it's not pretty to look at. So you have this, really high-end sim rig, and then you put this box on to control your force feedback. And to me, it's just a little off-putting. So the SimXperience AccuForce, I think, looks much better. It's a smaller profile. It's got tapered edges, and looks more car-like. We appreciate the lines of a car, obviously, being race fans, and this AccuForce is much closer to it than this. This is more like a cube van. So advantage in looks definitely goes to the AccuForce. The quick release on the SimXperience, one more time with the lift. This is a easy quick release. You just reach behind your wheel, you pull, and your wheel comes off. This is a screw-on style that ships with the CSL DD and McLaren GT3 wheel. You can get a QR1 quick release that will upgrade that to closer to that pull style. But out of the box, again, without any third-party upgrades, without any upgrades from Fanatec, the quick release is better on the SimXperience AccuForce. But again, QR1 is out, and I think QR2 quick releases are coming from Fanatec, so they should narrow that gap soon. But from the factory, it's just better on the AccuForce. And lastly, there's no pins, so I complained about the cable earlier, but the good news is when I had the problem with the cable, I just crimped on an RJ end and it plugged back in. The Fanatec uses pins. These pins come out of the wheel and plug into your wheel base. Did I get that backwards? Anyway, there's either pins on the wheelbase or pins on the wheel. I can't remember. And that is what transfers the information, of course. And there's no such pins on the AccuForce. And I'm always concerned about bending the pins on this Fanatec product. And yeah, so I haven't yet, and it lines up. You probably will never bend your pins, but I'm always concerned that I am. So nice to not have the pins on this side, just using that simple RJ cable to transfer the information. All right, so in conclusion, guys, that's the sort of pros and cons of each. But why do I choose this? So number one, and this is not something reviewers talk a lot about, but I just want to be candid with you guys. This to me is still new and cool. So as reviewers, we get sent products and it's no less exciting, frankly. Like, I track when UPS is going to deliver something like this and come home from work and see boxes stacked on your doorstep. it's awesome. And then, to open those up, yeah, there's a buzz. There's an aura about new products that lasts for a long time. And the aura is still with me on this product. It's still new and exciting to me. So that's certainly one of the reasons why I choose it. Also, the McLaren wheel that we talked about. I just love everything about this wheel. Again, I do own a few Fanatec wheels now, but yeah, I keep going back to the McLaren wheel rather. And it's just awesome. I just love it. And PlayStation compatibility, again, I mentioned that I'm playing a lot of GT7, so to flip over, quickly to my console, big deal. And lastly, the perhaps biggest question, the 8 Newton meters here versus the 13 Newton meters. Day to day, I don't really notice it. Like if you're getting into the finer details of tweaking force feedback and really have sort of a vision of what you want your force feedback to feel like, then yes, it's going to matter. Those extra Newton meters are going to matter. But for me, day to day, basically taking more or less stock force feedback in the game and then using the profiles that come with your Fanatec software, I mean, it feels really good, and I don't notice really much difference between this and this. Again, I'm not saying they're perfectly equal because, 13 Newton meters will allow you more of those fast rotational forces, but yeah, for day to day, for, getting really good force feedback, I don't find that big of a difference between the 8 Newton meter motor here and the 13 Newton meter motor over here. Just me. I know there's a lot of people that think it's 20 Newton meters and above or nothing, but for me, day to day, sim racing, probably half an hour to an hour a day on average, I don't notice a difference. So why not stick with this? I don't feel like I'm compromising anything in the force feedback quality or strength by going with the 8 Newton meter. Perhaps it's just me, but to me, it feels really, really good and not a compromise from the 13 Newton meters. So that's it, guys. Hopefully some of those reasons made sense to you somewhere. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this answered your question, and we'll see you guys next time.